Welcome back to the next episode of the eCom Growth Show. I'm your host, Danan Coleman, and this episode is sponsored by eCom Triage. And it does a whole bunch of stuff. You want to know more, go to ecomtriage.com. All right. So with me, I've got Mark from SellerVue. Mark, would you please introduce yourself? I'm really excited to talk to you about what we got to talk about today.
Yeah. Mark Botha, founder of SellerVue. Been in e-commerce for, 12, 13 years now, since 2012. Created my own e-commerce business and brands and realized that there was a big gap in e-commerce, and I'm really excited to talk about it today.
Yeah, awesome. Well, good. I'm going to dive straight into the questions. I've basically got 5 questions prepared for you. And so the first one being, let's talk about SellerVue, because what we're going to talk about on this episode is how you can help people in a lot of different ways with their profit recovery and 3PL, not necessarily 3PLs, logistics. Sorry, everyone. I haven't slept a whole lot last night because of, children, but we're going to get through this. Mark's going to carry me through to the end here.
Okay.
So
I got you.
Thanks, buddy.
Don't worry.
Appreciate it. All right. So question number 1, you've invested a significant amount into SellerVue. What's the driving vision behind the software, and how does it uniquely help sellers maximize their profits?
Yeah. So I'll give you a bit of a backstory. Mm-hmm. I am actually a chiropractor. I went to school to become a chiropractor. I had an office in Denver, Colorado. And, one day I was in between patients and I got an ad for how to sell on Amazon in like 2012 or way back in the day. I was like,
have you ever heard of David Singer Enterprises?
Yes, I worked with them.
Really? I was a consultant for them. I signed up chiropractors for DSE.
You probably signed up me, because I actually, now that you say that, I don't know when that was, but that was like 2007, 2008. Yeah. It's funny.
No way, dude.
So, yeah, I was with David for a long time.
Wow. Okay. So let's see. The cities I went to, this is a total digression from this, but this is crazy that we're finding this out on this podcast. So, okay. So the cities I went to, let's see, were Atlanta, Dallas, San Francisco, LA. There was another one. I can't remember, but I went to all the events. So for a while, I was doing the product sales with Mark Pope, if you remember who that is.
I remember Mark Pope, yeah.
Yeah, so I did the product sales with him, and then I started onboarding chiropractors for the consulting.
Funny. That's actually really funny. Because I tell you what's actually interesting about that is the statistics that David wanted us to manage, I think, is what led me to be kind of successful in the e-commerce space, because I was meticulous with tracking stats in the office. So when what ended up happening was that I sold my chiropractic practice. I was diving into Amazon. I was planning on moving to Florida, but between the move from Denver to Florida, Amazon just ballooned. Yeah. And I ended up traveling for 2 years with my 2-year-old, which I wouldn't say was a great idea, but
but it was an idea.
We did it. I did it. And funny enough, we were in Paris, and my 2-year-old we had a cafe, and she's jumping up and down on the chair, and I look at her, and we're like, I call British Airways. I'm like, I need to go home. So Anyway, so long story short was, SellerVue started after I sold my first e-commerce business. And, what happened was, I started my e-commerce business. It did really, really well. I was like, you know what? I'm going to sell this. I'm going to start another one. And what happened during that first exit was really like the frustration around due diligence, where I had like 50 SKUs I was selling, and I had obviously...
This is early days 50 SKUs.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but if you ever sold a business in the e-commerce space, like nothing really prepares you for the due diligence, really around like cost of goods sold and how you come up with your unit costs, and the paper trail of, suppliers and logistics and lead time and inbound cost and factory costs, and tying it all together, because at the end of the day, they're cutting you a check for the inventory. So they want to make sure they're cutting a check for $1 million. They want to make sure they're getting $1 million of inventory, and they're not getting $600,000 worth of inventory. So, what's interesting enough, like going through this process, is a lot of businesses fail due diligence mainly around inventory, because it doesn't add up. The buyer gets freaked out and bolts.
Yeah, that's definitely been my observation. So I've been running the same Amazon business since 2010. I never sold because I don't only do private label. Private label is the smaller side of things for me. But from people that I've spoken to at like Website Closers and Northrop Group and those guys, most everyone fails in the P&L section when it comes to the numbers, basically, because we're notorious for being absolute shit at our books.
Well, 100%, because we're so focused on revenue. We're so focused on like sales. We aren't necessarily focused on profit. And we aren't really focused on like the bookkeeping side of things, which obviously, I always equated to like the least sexiest things in e-commerce, but the least sexiest things in e-commerce are the most profitable things in e-commerce.
Absolutely.
So long story short, with the software in SellerVue, it was like, all right, I sold it. And I said to myself, listen, if I'm going to do this again, because I already started another one, I was like, I need a better solution, because I know I'm going to sell another one, because I actually really enjoyed building and selling. I was like, if I could just build and sell and keep doing this, that'd be amazing. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to go through that due diligence nightmare again. So I said, luckily at the time, a friend of mine is a developer. I said, like, hey, this is what I want. I just want a simple tool. Invoice comes in, I want to split it and assign any cost to any SKU, and I just want to track my unit cost as it fluctuates. One order cycle, the cost might be $2. Next order cycle might be $1.83. Next order cycle might be $2.20, and it's going to cost fluctuate like that. I said to him, he's like, yeah, no problem. So quickly, honestly, whip one up real quick. Obviously, it's only for me, so it wasn't very pretty, but it did the job. So by the time I was ready to sell my next one, which was like 18 months later, I was using SellerVue, but I went through and did all my costs. I had my team go back into all the costs for the last 18 months. I had all my invoices, all the pack lists, all the shipping invoices. I think at the time there was customs and duties was newly on the market. So we had customs and duties and everything in there. So it was very transparent costs. Wow. Anyway, so I went to my accountant. I said to him, listen, I want you to go back 12 months. These are my new costs. And I want you just to kind of do all the allocations for the last 12 months and, tell me what you find. Anyway, I literally get an email back from him with like a one-line sentence that just said, what did you do? And, I was trying to read the tone in between the lines. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Anyway, he came back and said, you added an extra $78,000 to your P&L here. Wow. And I was just like, what difference? What did you do? And I was like, well, I was just a lot more, meticulous on my costs. And it wasn't egregious errors. It was a matter of like 15 cents per SKU, on average, but over the volume of sales each month over 12 months, it just added up to $78,000. Yeah. Which added another, I think, $50,000 to the sale price.
Unbelievable.
And I always like equate it as like, like little compounds, like these little variances that, I hear all the time from sellers, like, oh, my costs are fine. What does it matter if I'm just off by, here and there? And I'm like, well, there could be thousands. Yeah. Could be hundreds of thousands, actually. Yeah.
And I'll tell you that to this very day, I have no idea what my true cost of goods are. Like, I do another thing on Fridays with a buddy of mine. He's got a Amazon Weekly News. Anytime I learn about new fees and stuff like that. So the way that I learn about what's going on with Amazon is I just do live streams on it. I find out on the live stream and then I comment like, I don't like that, or I love that, or whatever, right? And so when I find out about these fees, I just text my wife. I'm like, hey, check to see if we're still profitable. That's how I figure it out. But that's wild. By the way, one last little side tangent here. So do you remember the vitamins that Singer Enterprises sold?
Yeah.
That's my first product on Amazon.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. So
I think we had that in our office.
Yeah. So I didn't sell them through the company there. When I was no longer with David Singer Enterprises is when I started selling them. So that vitamin and that company is how I got into Amazon. Like crazy entry stories, but the way I got into Amazon is I got hit by a bus on my motorcycle and was incapacitated and couldn't travel because I was a traveling salesman. And that was a leap I made. Is like, hey, I know this product. I found out it's selling on Amazon because my buddy told me, like, can I sell it too? And he's like, yeah, sell it. And that is how I avoided medical bankruptcy, was with that one product when I got started.
Wow, that's a good story.
Yeah.
Actually, David Singer, he was good. He was really good to us. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. No more side tangents from me. I just think this is crazy how far back we're actually connected.
No,
And
that's crazy.
I don't know if I've never met you in person that I know of.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I could have met you at a seminar.
That's true.
Because I was at some of those seminars.
Yeah. Cool. All right, cool. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, let's get back on topic here. I'm sorry. This is just blowing my mind that we have this connection. All right, shall I go into the next question I've got for you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. So question 2 is, and first of all, I think it's amazing that you have invested the time into What's Not Sexy. And there's 2 accountants that I've spoken to in the space that they say exactly the same thing. Bookkeeping, not sexy. One of the most important things is to make sure you know your numbers, right? So with that in mind, what are the most common mistakes that you see e-com sellers make when it comes to optimizing the landed costs and supply chain?
Well, you said it earlier. First one is not knowing your costs. Is mistake number 1.
Yeah.
For the simple reason where I think, now back like 2012, 2013, 2014, so on, maybe until a couple of years ago, it wasn't a big deal.
No, because you were just making profit hand over fist.
I mean, it was just like, I think it was like, like Scarface days. I mean, just like money's just piling up. You know what I mean? Like, wow, what happened there?
Yeah, back in those days, I was tracking my numbers a lot more closely than I am today, but I had a 68% net profit.
Yeah, it was wild. But, I was still obviously tracking my costs because I was always planning on building and selling. Once you sold the business and you realize what's coming at you, once what you know is coming at you, you're going to always track your costs. You're always going to be prepared to sell. My focus is if I'm always planning to sell, like if I'm because I'm ready to sell today. Someone could walk in the door and be like, hey, I'm going to offer you, here's a check. Show me what you got today. Are you ready? And I'm like, yes, I'm ready. And the reason why I do that is if you're profit centric and you're ready to sell, you're always going to maximize your business for profit. Your bottom line is always going to be growing because you're so focused on it. But where I see, sellers making the mistake is, well, obviously not knowing them, just kind of giving it a blanket average and going, oh, I did it. And I have this conversation with nearly every single accountant and bookkeeper that I come across. Even the agencies that manage the accounts have the same situation, is that, sellers don't know the numbers. And this is probably one of the most important metrics to calculate because it's the foundation of your profit margin, especially in these new, when you think about the contribution margins. If you're not aware of what contribution margins are, there's 1, 2, and 3. Contribution margin 1 is your revenue minus your landed costs. That gives you your baseline of your gross. That's how much you're making. The next is number 2. That is, revenue minus landed costs minus fulfillment fees to get the product to the customer. And number 3 is, all of those other 1 and 2 minus the ad spend. And now we've got our gross profit. That's what you're actually making. And you can look at it on a SKU by SKU level, on a granular level. Okay, SKU making this, SKU 2 is making this, SKU 3 is making this. And then you can zoom out and look at your business from a 30,000 foot view and go, this is what my overall contribution margins are on my business. And you can start tracking that and you'll see the fluctuations happen over time. And it's almost like a pulse of your business because especially if you looked at it over time, fulfillment costs up, from all these years, you'll just see the graph. It's not like a slow graph like that. It's like a beeline straight to the top on fees, what's happening.
Yeah.
And the same with ad spend, now, back in the day, you could rank your product and it's not page 1 and it lives there until whenever. But now it's pay to play. Now if you're not spending, you are absolutely nowhere. So, you need to know these costs. So the trickle down effect is, it's so important now to have a look at your costs because it's the only way, the place where you can have control. You can still negotiate with your suppliers. You can still make better logistical decisions on how you're going to ship a product. You can still make sure that your tariffs are correct. You can possibly go to another area and source your product to minimize tariffs. There's a whole lot you can do to get your costs down so that your contribution margin 1 is the best it can ever be. But if you don't know your number, then
you don't even know if you need to. Yeah.
You don't even know what you need to do in order to make that better. So it's like I said, it's the only way you have control. You're not calling Amazon and being like, hey, can I get a better rate on my fulfillment? Can get maybe a percentage point off my referral fee. I really don't like these placement fees. Could I get out of that, please? You're not doing that. Okay. And you're certainly not getting, you're not getting like a discount on PPC. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the attention is here. And that's the where I see the biggest problem is the attention is on, on PPC and fulfillment. But where our real attention should be is, one, let's know our numbers. And that's half the battle. The other half is, how do I make that better? And the only way to make it better is to actually know it, because otherwise, you're flying blind.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Nobody even took into consideration, let's go back maybe 5 years ago in the space, nobody even took logistics into consideration. Nobody knew what a 3PL was. Nobody knew a lot of people knew what a logistics company was, but most sellers just used their manufacturer to handle everything DDP, right?
Yeah.
And just get it direct to the port, direct to your door. I did DDP, right? So I didn't want to have to handle customs. I didn't want to have to handle anything. And I just told my manufacturer, I don't know what that is. You do it, right? Turns out I was paying a pretty penny because they just upcharge it to whatever the hell they wanted, And me, I just go, okay, well, this is just part of my cost of goods, right? Little did I know I could have been paying 50%, not joking, 50% less. And
I'm
then,
sure.
Yeah. And then I went to China and negotiated pricing with a separate factory and saved 30%. Pretty sure it's 30%, not 50, 30% on my cost of goods. And so my landed cost went down, let's just say overall 40%, hell, even if it was 10%, even if I only got a 10% reduction in my cost of my landed cost, that is amazing. That is an enormous amount of additional profit.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, and also, all you got to do is ask.
Yeah.
I had one client. I was like, we did all the costs because we also take on private clients as well. So I was like, okay, we got your costs now. We know what they are. This is your contribution margin. I was like, by just like, when last did you talk to your supplier and be like, hey, what else can we do here? And he's like, never. So I was like, well, I was like, okay, you got some good stats here. Like, let's just put this together, send this to them, and come see what they come back with. Anyway, they came back when we're like, okay, well, how about 50%? And he came back and he's like, I think he was paying $1.90 a product. He's like, I got it for 85 cents.
Amazing.
You know what I mean? Like 85 cents.
Yeah.
And all you had to do was ask. So that's the other thing, like I think, sellers, so easy, like this e-commerce, because you're sitting behind your computer and you're not really kind of face to face with people, but it is a people to people business, and all you got to do is ask and go out there and, like there are so many amazing freight forwarders. Like we have some really good freight forwarders in our network. They're all really good. And all you got to do is, get multiple quotes. I mean, they handle everything for you. They handle the shipping, they handle the customs, they handle, all of that kind of stuff. It's like really pretty hands off.
I would go no other way, man. If it were me, I'd go, okay, manufacturer, here's what I want. Send me invoice. Okay, here you go, logistics company. This is where I want it to go. Thanks, everyone. Yeah. See you later.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think like that's, when you're looking at the mistakes people are making, that aren't putting time and attention on it. And I think there is so much money. There is so much money sitting over here that could be utilized to build a business profitably. Because I think that's the other thing where I think about it, e-commerce it's about scaling in the right order.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
we are bombarded. I mean, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, geez, do I need a new email? Because I have a million emails here. And they're all about PPC and all about this and all about scaling and all about this. And I think about it and I'm like, I think a lot of sellers are focusing on these things that are driving the revenue.
Right.
I agree with you. Sales.
Yep.
They aren't thinking about the profit. And at the end of the day, all they're really doing is creating a headache. They're creating an overhead where if we scale it properly, we scale it in the right order, where we focus on profit recovery and making sure, okay, this product I'm selling right now, this is the best it's going to get. I know my margins, and all I need to do is now I need to scale it. I got my listings optimized, my copy is good, my listing is the best it's ever going to be. I got amazing reviews. Great, let's hit the accelerator on scaling. But it's I think it's a mindset change that sellers need to do, especially now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And just to expand upon going to your factory and asking for better pricing, you can go even beyond that and say, and discuss terms, right?
Yeah.
Cool. I'll give you 30% down. You give me 50% of my product and I'll pay you the other 70% in 3 months or something like that. Therefore, you are cash flowing on the inventory that you've only paid 30% on. And you could technically cash flow the remaining amount of cost with the inventory that you just purchased. And so you don't have to tie up 150 grand before you even receive your product, before it's even in the Amazon warehouses. And so, I'm not saying that you have to go meet person in person, but I truly think that it goes a very, very long way if you sit down in front of the owners of the factory and you just create a relationship. Would you agree with me on that?
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, we discussed this. If you don't ask, you don't get. And I even think like you can get away with probably 10% down, 90% later. I think that I've had a couple clients get that. They just asked. They've been. I think you have to have like some kind of good history with them. I think if you create a little slide, like a little pitch slide as well, because it's a relationship. You're in this together, and they want to see you do well, and obviously you want to maintain that good relationship. And whether they get it all the money today or they get it in 90 days, they're going to be getting it every 90 days for the long, or however long, right? So like, what does it matter? Obviously they want to be paid. You can't screw them over, but it doesn't matter to them whether they get paid today or they get paid in 90 days. They're going to get their money, but it's a continuity program for them.
Yes. Yeah. Well said. There's also, I've heard of a couple of friends, not many have done this, but where they put it in order, say for 100 units, and the manufacturer holds all 100 and sends them 20 at a time as they need it. And then, but they don't pay for that 20 until they're ordering, until that 20 is being shipped or something like that, So it's possible to have these.
Yeah. I think that's even like a better way to do it as well, because now if you order, you can have your 10,000 units ready to go. And you send 2,000 on a boat, head Amazon, they start selling out, you put another 2,000 on a boat. Those start selling out. You're reducing your storage fees. You're reducing all the costs incurred at Amazon, and your products are sitting, whether they're sitting in China in a warehouse and getting drip fed over to the US.
Yes.
Yeah, because I've done it all. I had a staging warehouse. I had a staging warehouse in Tampa.
That's where I am.
This was it. You are like in like 2015. So that was like when Amazon fees were going up. I was like, okay, well, let's get a staging warehouse. We'll have a warehouse and we'll just feed our products to Amazon. And then I thought Amazon like, there's something else going on here. So I think they were like, well, no, let's bump the fees up on the inbound shipments. So it became like cost prohibitive to even have a staging warehouse.
Yeah.
So then we kind of switched to kind of the model you just discussed as well, like leaving the products in China. And only shipping when needed to.
Yep.
And then, then COVID happened.
Right. Yeah. And so there are companies out there, I actually only know of one, where if let's say the manufacturer says, look, we're willing to do that, but we can't store the product here. Then there's companies like SKU Drop, where you can just ship it to a Chinese warehouse and they'll drip it out for you.
Yeah. I was going to mention, is it Jamie at SKU Drop?
Jamie.
Yeah, I chatted with him. I absolutely love this program. I think that's the best way to do it. Keeping your products in China and shipping them when you need to. Again, the unsexy part of e-commerce, where you're going like, how do I minimize all these costs incurred? Now it's not
let me, yeah, let we take all of your money from you. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yep. And then it's all in fine print as like, well, are we doing this fee now? It's in the fine print and you can't read it anymore. Like, screw it. I don't know what I'm paying Amazon. It's like a government, you work 70% of your life for Amazon and then the rest of it for the government, and you can take your 10% and buy yourself a new car.
Well, also, I think sometimes they get sitting around a boardroom and they're like, well, they got nowhere else to go. So
I think you're right, man.
let's just tack another fee on and see what happens. And then,
Yeah.
like the forums blow up and, everyone's crazy mad. And then it's like, all right, whatever. Let's
Yeah.
just go back to work.
See, this is why I was so happy when Walmart was coming in, but it's taking them so much longer. And then there's other marketplaces. Have you heard of Rivly yet?
I actually haven't heard of Rivly, no.
Yeah, so they're building a marketplace that they are going after Amazon. They are trying to take everything that's wrong with Amazon from the standpoint of what's wrong for us as sellers on Amazon, and they're trying to fix it. The review system is being fixed. You say who can and can't sell your product, and it's gonna be good. Yeah. But they're in beta right now, closed beta right now, and I'm so excited to have them launch. But anyhow, again, on the profit side of things, this is something that for the longest time I was embarrassed to say. For as long as I have been selling on Amazon, especially in the early days, I meet all these 7-figure sellers, right? The big thing back then was you're 7-figure selling. Like, oh my God, you did $1 million. Billionaire. Oh, at some of those people at best are 100,000-aires,
Yeah.
And I was surprised. Back in those days, like I said, I had 68% net profit margins on $400,000 in sales. I was making almost 3 times as much as the people that I knew that were doing $1 million plus. That was like, I was just gobsmacked at that. Like, where is all of your money going?
Yeah.
And so I have always focused on profit. In those days, I focused on profit, right? And I would take a product that, there was a beauty product that I sold, and their price was, what was it? It was €9.99. I launched it into America, started it at 24 and went, okay, that's not enough money. And my price on those was $4.
Wow. Yeah.
Landed. My price was $4 landed in America, and then another 50 cents or something like that per unit to get it to Amazon and checked in and all that. So call it $4.50. Hell, call it $5, right? $5, and I sold it for $49.99.
That's wild.
Yeah. So, and this is, anyhow, yeah, let's go to the next question. But my point is that I cannot stress enough how much I agree with you that you need to be looking at profit before you ever sell a product, because we're not in the business of working for Amazon to make them richer. You don't. Yeah. And if you think you want to be, then I call that, just use that as a learning lesson and then fix that shit and make it right the next time around.
Yeah. Well, it just comes back to, this is a business. We're in the business of running a business and building a business. And you got to do all the things in the business. There are sexy things in the business, and there are things that are a slog and you have to do. And, I think we're lucky enough in 2025 that, there are now tools that all the hard slug stuff can be automated.
Yes.
The tool, the thing that we have, you don't have to calculate anything. It does it for you. So like, why wouldn't, just do it.
You remember the days of having to have tax jar because Amazon wanted you to submit taxes to every state that you sold in, and there were different, oh my God, that was horrendous.
The letter you get from California.
Yeah, I've still got that somewhere.
You're like, do I want to open that?
I ignored it. I actually ignored that letter. I opened the letter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I opened the letter. I was like, screw you guys. I'm not paying you. I don't have Nexus there. So
we were selling our business, and the buyers were like, "Yeah, we need to pay that." I'm like, "Oh my god!" Anyway, that was like that one. That one hurt. But anyway,
yeah,
that one hurts.
yeah. All right, cool. I feel like you and I could talk a long time about profit, and in fact, I think we should go ahead and do a course together, step by step, everything you need to do before you even decide on your product.
Yeah, I would be in for that. I think it's such an important process that people kind of skip over.
I agree with you so wholeheartedly. Okay, cool. Let's get into the next question. All right, you mentioned actually before we started recording, but also I think you alluded to it during this, that there are some profit recovery strategies that can be employed. So how can sellers recover, let's call it 20% more profit? And I realize it can be plus or minus, but let's go with 20%. How could they recover 20% profit? And what does that process typically involve? As we've been harping on this whole time, nobody knows. Very few people actually do the research here. So what can someone do to go like, okay, I know my cost is $10. You're saying that you could make that cost. Well, it wouldn't necessarily. Anyhow, you know what I'm asking. What can people do to improve their profit?
Well, first of all, it comes to understanding what your true landed unit cost is, your last received landed unit cost. And that's where the biggest errors we find. And that's a simple fix. I'll give you an example. Like we just had a client where compounded over 12 months, we found, was it $97,000.
Wow.
And, so like the way it works was, when we first did, the initial, order with them, we're like, okay, what are your costs on your products? And I'll just use one of them example. It was, they said the cost was $339. Now, like you go into remember Managed by Stats or SellerVue's, you got to manually enter your costs into the tools.
Yeah.
You got to grab a CSV file and you'd be like, all right, widget A, $339.
Yep.
Widget B, $448.
Set your date range. Yep.
And you're like, okay, well, that's what it is. Okay. So I was like, all right, your cost is, $339. Okay. If that's fine. So I was like, all right, well, let's go back. We're going to go back 12 months. We're going to figure out your factory invoices, times of receipt, your pack list, your shipping invoices, customs and duties, and all of that. So the way SellerVue works is it works off order cycles. So you create a purchase order that creates, I would say, it's a bucket. You'll then, create an order. So then the supplier goes, all right, these products are ready to ship. You create a shipment plan. You send it off to your freight forwarder. You get a quote. That particular products is now on a boat. You finally get the invoice for the shipping invoice and the customs invoice, and you allocate that invoice to that pack list, which calculates the costs automatically for you. So this person kind of does it kind of a more frequent order cycle. They're trying to obviously minimize the storage costs at Amazon. So they have a little more frequencies, but their fluctuations are going to happen a little bit more.
Yep.
And because they're ordering so much, they are not paying attention to their costs. They're just going at $339. And, leaving it at that. But so when we did their cost fluctuated between $339 down to $321 to $325 down to $318. That, through the volume of sales on this one product, they sold 22,000 units over the course of the year. This one product. So the cost of goods sold is, inside the profitability tool said 74,800 and blah blah. So then we went back, put the actual costs in for 12 months, and the costs were 70,200 or something. So there was a $4,300
deficit.
The difference was. Yeah. So there was extra $4,300.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, great.
And if they were going to sell, then that technically would translate, let's say today, into an additional $12,000 of value to their company, something like that. Yeah.
Well, these guys had, I think 38 or 40 SKUs.
So that was one SKU.
That's one SKU.
Right.
So now
okay.
We're doing that for every other SKU.
Yeah.
And these small little variances, up, down, up, down, up, down, added up to $97,000.
That's the client. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I always think,
yeah, I got it. Go ahead.
Yeah. I always like to joke around. It's like, if you walk past 18 cents on the floor, would you pick it up? You're at the grocery store, you see 18 cents, you're like,
Yeah,
If
it's
someone
fine.
looking past, you're like, I'm not going to pick that up. But if you walk past it 22,000 times, you know what I mean? There's $4,000. Like, I might do that.
Yeah, yeah. I might start walking with the wheelbarrow.
Yeah. So what ended up with these clients was, well, you know, their costs, their cost of goods sold was, I think, their profit went from 484,000 all the way up to 500 and 80 something thousand, which was a
Yeah,
$97,000 difference.
yeah.
Off like 18 cents difference,
Yes.
give or take.
Crazy.
So that's just like the beginning part of the cycle. Okay, now that we have these numbers, one, we looked at the logistics, we got the logistics down a little bit because they're, doing multiple shipments. They got better quotes from freight forwarders. Whether, the container is $8,000 and you go to a freight forwarder B, you're like, all right, I got a nice container, 6,800. All right, I'll go with that one.
Yep.
So all these little costs add up.
Yeah.
But that's where, the 20% comes from being accurate. It becomes from these small variances that lead to big gains that you aren't really thinking about, but it's eventually adds up.
Yeah. And then, like we said earlier, there is a lot you can do to gain even more profit by negotiating with supplier. And like you just mentioned, logistics, or putting your inventory and storing it with SKU drop in China and letting them drip it out and blah, 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 blah. There's just, yeah.
I mean, like with, the Star Wars, all the things you can do.
Yeah. We should probably.
It's all those things you can do that really isn't being done because, most e-commerce, they have a smaller team. Because I was chatting with an accountant the other day. We work together. They send us clients. We fix all their costs for their clients because that's their number one issue is,
yes,
it's a real business. You have to file taxes. But probably around about now, everyone's freaking out. I'll be like, I need to give my bookkeeper. I need to do everything and get everything solved. And then the bookkeeper's like, all right, we need your costs. And the seller goes, click. I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
So we solve
my costs are 100% of what I made.
So we work with accountants because we take that off their hand and we do it for them. And it makes it an effortless process for the accountant because the seller doesn't have to do it. We do it for them. And then we talk with the accountant and we get all the documentation. It's really a good kind of flow of information.
Wow.
Kind of the story was this e-commerce accountant I was chatting with, he said, like, when he started in e-commerce, because he was working with some big organizations, he got into e-commerce and he was like, I don't really understand why it's so hard for sellers to know their costs. And then he started getting into it and he was like, the reason why some of these big enterprises, they have teams dedicated to cost. They have a cost accounting department that they know their costs. But obviously it's cost prohibitive for, like you and I, sellers like us, because we're not going to have a cost department.
Yep. I was on with Afolabi from Tariff Terminator a while back, and he mentioned that this was the first time I'd heard it, but tariff code engineering, where you can actually, for lack of a better word, customize how your tariffs are charged. And that is how one way that big corporations save an enormous amount of money is like you could take something where if you brought it in together as a singular unit that's being shipped into the US, it's 20% duty. But if you sent them in separately, it's 4% and 2% kind of thing. Good, assemble it here or whatever. There's so many different. Again, we go back to there's so many different ways. We have to, Mark, you're gonna have to put a list together.
Actually, we're writing a book. How to save money. How to save money in e-commerce.
I like it. So when's that book coming out?
I don't know. I gotta make time.
GPT, Perplexity, write me a book. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, this is awesome, man. I feel like I'm not even joking. Like, first of all, a list of all the different places that you could look to increase your profit. And then obviously your book, if it comes out, but in the meantime, maybe just a webinar, where you just go, somebody give me your product and let's just run through it,
Yeah. And we do. We do that. We do an audit for sellers just to kind of double check. We do like a 30,000 foot audit of their of their business to make sure that they're, even, if you're at $1 million business and, you can trim 3% back.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Even 1%, get 10 grand back. Why not?
I know. Yeah. Amazon's going to take it next year. So better that you have it available.
Better take the 10 grand and put it in Amazon shares.
Yes, exactly. Nice. All right, cool. We've got 2 questions left. How are we doing on time here? We've got, oh man. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Next question is this. What advice do you have for Amazon sellers looking to scale efficiently while maintaining profitability and minimizing costs? I feel like this is kind of like me re-asking the same question a different way. I feel like you're still going to bring some massive value to that, to whatever you say.
Yeah, I think, it comes back to scaling in the right order. It comes back to, stepping back from your business and going, what is best for my business? Deciding on a course of action and sticking with it. I had this conversation with actually a listing optimization guy the other day, and he said, he spoke with a client and he said to his client, well, we should, do some listing optimization. I think you're missing out on some stuff. And the client said to me, like, I can only do one or the other. I can either do PPC or I can do, listing optimization. And he said the guy chose PPC.
Oh my gosh. So many, man.
And I said, I wouldn't say that is like the consensus thinking where most people are thinking that way, but I'm afraid to say it actually is.
It is. 100% is.
And it also comes back to the same, like I speak to like so many clients. I'm lucky enough that I get a lot of referrals from accountants and brokers and bookkeepers that I don't actually have to do like a hard close. Because I always say, like, I was chatting with Seth the other day. I was like, I am actually a terrible closer. Like I am like the anti-salesman. You know what I mean? Like I am not a closer. I was like, I don't love that part of it because like what I have is like, if you give me $10,000 and I give you $100,000, would you do it? Yeah. Like that's what I do.
That's that age-old pitch from stage. If you give me 5,000, I give you 50,000. Would you do it? And everyone says, yeah. And they go, give me $5,000. Oh,
yeah. So I get a lot of referrals. So I don't really have to close them because they already
awesome.
They already know what we're doing. So I think when it comes to looking at your business, you want to make sure you're doing, like I said, like you're doing it in the right order. You know your costs. They're the best they're going to be. Your business is optimized. Everything is perfect, as perfect as it could be. And now, all right, let's go get more customers. Let's sell more. How do we sell more? Let's do that. But without doing 1 and 2, you're on a straight shot down.
Yeah. And if nothing else, you're going to use all of your profit to invest into advertising to try and drive traffic for your crap conversion rate, thinking that that's the problem.
Well, then it opens up a whole other freaking can of worms.
It does.
Where it's, okay, let me call a lender. Let's get some money. Yeah. And now you're in that cycle.
Yep. You want compound interest of 20% on my loan? Done. I need revenue.
Yeah. And that, I think that's just the kiss of death. But, recovering 20% of profit, using that to scale your growth. Let's go all day long.
Yeah. I've never taken on debt for anything. I've considered it a couple of times, but I much prefer to bootstrap because, there's 2 ways to go about it. You take on debt or give away equity, and maybe you can scale a lot faster, and that could be worth it. Plenty of companies do that. Me personally, I like to own 100% of my profit, and I would rather scale a little bit slower and really have processes in place that are like really well defined. And I'm big on automating or optimizing as much as I can. And so let's just take my own Amazon business, for instance. And I'll preface this with, this is not necessarily what I recommend people do. In fact, in some ways, I advise against it. This is an admission of guilt, not a product roadmap or business roadmap, okay? So I have basically gone mostly away from private label. I have exclusivity to a brand, a manufacturer. I have exclusivity to their product on Amazon. I get the product on consignment. So I have $0 out. I have no liquid capital out to get the product. I just get it on consignment. I don't hold the inventory. I don't see the inventory. We give them a shipping label. They ship it into Amazon. They're the manufacturers in California. It doesn't typically have to go very far because that's our biggest state by far on our sales. And I don't run ads. I run my sales on repeat purchases and people that are already looking for the brand. And I haven't changed my, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years, something like that.
That's awesome.
The main image is even an older version, but I just know that that's what people are looking for, is that older version of the image. So, and the time involvement, like I'm off of it. My wife is the one that handles Amazon now completely and totally, in just Amazon.com, right? But her time involvement is a collective, maybe 5 hours a month.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So this is how that was my path to profit, was sweat equity equals 5 hours per month. And you have a 6 or 7 figure brand. It's not 7 figures, so it's a 6-figure brand. 6-figure sales, our profit, even though it's gotten insanely expensive because we haven't changed our prices either, we are still profitable because the time involvement is nil. We don't spend our money on advertising. We don't have logistic costs, right? Other than just shipping into Amazon. So this is how I have optimized for profit. So anyhow, one last question, and I think we're segueing into this pretty well. In your experience, what are the key factors that contribute to a successful e-commerce exit? And what should sellers be focusing on to achieve this? And I think we've kind of covered this a few different ways, but go ahead.
I think ultimately prep. You got to be, well, if you sold before, you know what you're getting yourself into. If you've never sold before, it is a giant eye opener. It is stressful. It is tiring. It is all of the things that you would never expect. And I think if you are aware and you listen and you learn, your life is going to be significantly better during that sale process. So using, like we said in the beginning, the biggest, deterrent and for things to fall apart are around inventory and how you handle your inventory. The sellers, like some of the big, I've chatted with some of the, the website closers and the empire flippers and all those companies, and their biggest thing is they also don't even take on clients. I don't even know where I was over this. They are turn away a fair amount of people because they simply can't come up with their cost per units. They can't come up with their cost per units. They can't come up with their inbound costs. They don't know what their production lead times are. They don't know what their inbound lead times are. They don't know what their stock values are. They don't have any of this information.
And they have no bookkeeping.
Yeah. Or even worse, because I talk with the bookkeepers, they call the bookkeeper and they're like, hey, I need this information. And the bookkeeper goes, we don't keep that information. We don't, we use, they possibly use like A2X or something like that, where they're pushing the fees into QuickBooks, but still the costs still have to be manually entered into A2X, just like any other tool. So if those costs are wrong, your books are wrong. And now, the buyer comes along and goes, yeah, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And now all of a sudden you're scrambling, and then you come back and be like, oh, you know what? Yeah, that was wrong. And then the buyer goes, yeah, what about that one? Oh, that was wrong too. And now all of a sudden you've lost good faith. The transparency is out the window, and the buyer is like, man, he has put his running shoes on and he's running as fast as he can for the door.
Yep.
So it's, and that's one of the things, with SellerVue is the transparency of information. It is night and day for, especially on a buy and sell process, because one, you can click in, you can log, you can be like, oh, okay, this was the last order. I can see the cost. I want to see the invoice, click through, have a look at the invoice. Okay, I want to see the weighted average. Okay, I see how you came up with this average. Oh, well, let me click through and double check that. Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. Stock value, lead times, factory inbound total cost. There's my weighted cost. Like everything is right there for them, for the buyer to go, makes sense, makes sense, makes sense. I have so much confidence in this business right now. Here's a check. So it's, whether you're never thinking about selling or whether you're planning on selling tomorrow,
it should be the same.
It should be the same because just like we said, if you're scaling in the right order, you're going to make more money. You're going to invest in growth. You can skip lending. You can do all the right things, and the money is going to be there. Then when the money is there and it's time to sell, it's an effortless process for you. But it's doing the unsexy things, like we've said, to maximize your business to its full potential, which is really what any business owner should be doing, is how do I maximize my business to the full potential and do as well as it should be doing.
Should be doing that from the start, but the vast majority of us don't even know about this. I knew about none of these things when I started.
No.
In fact, I had a hard lesson learned when I thought I made $1 million, so I spent $1 million, That was a big whoopsie daisy that year. Never made that mistake again. And then I learned about costs and profit and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it was that year that I started heavily optimizing for profit, is when I spent as much as I made and went, oh shit.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So listen, this has been absolutely insanely valuable. Where can people find you? Obviously, SellerVue. And for those of you that are listening audio, it's SellerVue, not VIEW. So SellerVue is the name of the company. So where do people go?
Go to SellerVue.com. You can book a demo. The demo will be with me, and we can just chat. I can show you the app, talk about the business, and we can take it from there. Very low key. Like I said, I am not a salesman.
I was just gonna say, Mark's already said he's a shit closer, so don't worry about being hard sold on the service.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm sending out an email because I'm talking about, we're actually launching a founders club because we're launching the new SellerVue 2.0 version, which is like a game changer. There's also there's integrated profit tool as well. So we're pushing costs directly into the profit tool that automatically data captures all these small variances. So the profit tool is going to be the most accurate tool imaginable. You'll be able to see your expenses, your fulfillment fees, your advertising. Everything's going to be so tight so that you never ever have a question about how much money I'm making.
SellerVue is coming for MBS, Jungle Scout, Helium 10, Seller Board.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I smile when some client goes, "Holy!" I'm not going to swear here, but holy.
You can swear.
Holy shit. Yeah, my $100,000.
My listeners, my mom can take it. She's my only listener. She taught me to swear.
Yeah. So we're launching a founders club where, because to be a private client with us costs anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. I mean, it takes us a lot of work.
Yeah.
It takes us, it's a lot of effort to do. The gains are 10x. Why wouldn't you?
Yes.
But, our capacity to take on, more and more clients, obviously it's limited because it's a personal brand. We I don't want to get too big where there are mistakes, so we kind of keep it small. But I recognize, like we've said here, is that this is the most unknown information out there, and I think more sellers need to know this.
I fully agree.
So we've launched the tool where sellers can do it themselves, but also that there needs to be training in a bit of a mindset shift to be cost focused, profit centric.
Cool. And what about the Founders Club? How can somebody find out about that? Just talk to you?
Yeah, best thing to do is if you go watch a demo or go over, sign up for our newsletter, get on our list. If you are like gung ho, super interested, just go to Mark @sellervue.com and shoot me an email, and I'll make sure that you are included in kind of the information that goes on about it.
Cool. Mark, it's been super awesome having you on here. I would love to deep dive into more stuff. I'd love to figure out doing a webinar on your software and just show people how you find this money. But we'll talk about that. I'm going to stop the recording, but I want to stick around. I want to talk to you about that.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, cool, buddy. Thank you so much for being on. Cheers. Bye.
All right, cheers.